We have witnesses placing you at the scene. It's over. Start talking.
Where did you hide him?
Start talking now.
The envelope proves my innocence. Call the number on the phone.
We already know you're guilty. Stop lying.
We handle this my way. People are getting restless, sir. That phone won't stop.
Did you hear what happened down by the river?
The sheriff's deputy slammed the cell door before the black woman could finish her sentence. "Attitude," he said, loud enough for the whole station to hear. Her phone lay face down on the desk, still glowing with a missed call from Washington. Why would a quiet woman in a worn gray coat make a county sheriff this nervous? Why did she keep asking for one sealed envelope instead of begging to be released? And why, 5 minutes later, did the Pentagon call the front desk and make every badge in that room go silent? By sunset, one forgotten camera and one woman's steady voice would begin to crack the town open. What happened inside that small-town jail would not stay buried for long. The cell door hit the frame with a flat metal crack, and the sound ran down the narrow hall. Amara Bennett stood. Deputy Evan Price held the ring of keys, his thumb pressing the brass edges until they clicked. "Step back from the door," he said. "I am behind the line." "You heard me." Amara moved one shoe length back. The floor was cold through her flats. Near the front desk, her phone began to vibrate against metal. Sheriff Clayton Rusk turned before anyone else did. He pointed without looking. "Leave it." Dispatcher Lila Mercer lifted her eyes from the console. "Sheriff, it's her phone." "I said leave it." The screen flashed around a number no one recognized. Washington, D.C. The vibration made the keys tremble in tiny circles. Amara watched from the cell. "I need that call logged." Rusk gave a dry laugh. "You need to sit quiet. I need my property secured, my time of detention recorded, and the sealed envelope returned to the chain of custody." Price glanced at the gray envelope. "Chain of custody?" Rusk stepped between them. "Don't repeat her words like they mean something." A man in a feed store cap stopped filling out a form. A woman with a sleeping toddler pulled the child closer. The room smelled of burnt coffee, damp wool, and cleaner. Lila reached toward the phone, then froze when Rusk's boot scraped behind her. "Ms. Mercer," he said softly. Her fingers curled back. The call ended. The screen went dark. Price shifted. "Sheriff, maybe you should finish your report. I haven't written the basis yet. Failure to comply, obstruction, disorderly conduct if you need a third line." She asked for a supervisor. She got one. Amara stepped closer to the bars. "Deputy Price, please note that I requested counsel and a phone call at 4:17 p.m. Price looked at the wall clock. Rusk smiled. "You don't give instructions in my station." "This is not instruction." "Then what is it?" "A record." For the first time, Lila looked directly at Amara. It lasted only a breath. Then she turned to her console and typed 3 quiet strokes. Rusk heard them. "What are you doing?" "Clearing the last call screen." "You don't need to clear anything." "Yes, sir." She stopped. Rain clicked against the small window. Behind the office came the faint mechanical tick of an old camera over the booking desk. Amara noticed it. So did Price. Rusk crossed to the counter and picked up the gray envelope. A small federal seal sat beneath his thumb. "That belongs with my logged property," Amara said. "It belongs wherever I put it." "Then write that down." His jaw tightened. He slid the envelope under his arm and lifted her phone with 2 fingers. The screen lit once more. Same number. Same city. This time, the vibration sounded louder because the room had gone still. Lila swallowed. Price stared at the phone. The man in the feed store cap lowered his pen. Rusk pressed the side button until the screen died. Amara's eyes stayed on the phone. "Sheriff Rusk, you just refused a second documented call." "No," he said, setting it face down beside the keys. "I ended a distraction." The old camera ticked again while the counter carried the last tremor of the phone into the ring of keys. At 6:45 a.m., Amara Bennett stepped off the bus into rain that smelled of red clay and diesel. Briar Glen had one depot, one cracked clock, and wet leaves sliding along the curb. She adjusted the strap of her suitcase and touched the inside pocket of her gray coat. The corner of the old photograph was still there, soft from years of being handled. "You need a cab, ma'am?" the driver asked. "No, thank you. I'll walk." "In this weather?" "It helps me see a place." The bus pulled away with a hiss. Across the square, the sheriff's office sat under a flag snapping in the wind. Bell's Diner had fogged windows and a bell that rang twice because it stuck. Ruth Bell looked up from wiping the counter, silver hair pinned tight. "Coffee? Please, black." "You passing through?" "For today." "Business?" "Paperwork. That's a dangerous word around here." At the last booth, a man in a mechanic's jacket lifted his eyes from his eggs. Grease sat deep around his nails. "That's Marcus Hale," Ruth said. "If your paperwork involves a car, he's honest. If it involves the county, he's tired." Amara turned the mug handle toward her. "Does the county make people tired?" Ruth stopped wiping. "Depends who's asking." "Someone who listens better than she talks." The heater clicked under the window. Marcus pushed his plate aside. "Briar Glen Supply Center," he said. "You here for that?" Ruth shot him a warning look. Amara opened her coat to take out cash, and the photograph slipped halfway free. A young man in dress blues smiled from the faded paper, one arm around a little girl with crooked braids. Ruth's voice dropped. "Family?" "My brother." "Is he still?" "He left me a promise." Amara tucked the photo back. "I try not to fold it more than I have to." Marcus lowered his gaze. "If you're going near the supply center, don't take the west road." "Why?" "Sheriff's people watch it. Trucks come out at odd hours. Men ask about invoices, then get stopped for taillights they didn't break." Ruth whispered, "Marcus." "No, she should know." The vinyl seat squeaked as he leaned closer. "Hank Duval runs that warehouse. Drinks with Sheriff Rusk every Friday. Missing pallets become errors." Rain dragged crooked lines down the diner glass. Outside, a patrol car rolled past slowly enough for Ruth to stop moving. Her fingers tightened around the rag until water dripped onto the floor. Amara noticed that too. Ruth breathed out. "You didn't hear that from us." "I heard people talking over breakfast." "You say that like it protects people." "Sometimes it does." Amara slid 2 bills under the saucer. "Sometimes it shows who needs protection." Marcus studied her. "You don't sound like a consultant." "I didn't say I was." Ruth refilled the mug, though it was still half full. "Whatever paper you brought, keep it close." Amara stood. The suitcase handle was cold in her palm. At the door, she touched the inside pocket again. The photograph's bent corner pressed against her ribs like a small, patient finger. Outside, the rain had thinned to mist. The gray envelope waited inside her suitcase, sealed beneath a change of clothes. Across the square, the sheriff's flag cracked in the wind as Amara started toward Briar Glen Supply Center. At 7:32 a.m., the west road ended in broken asphalt, pine needles, and red mud. Amara stopped at the chain-link fence while rain ticked against her collar. Briar Glen Supply Center sat beyond the gate, doors open to wet cardboard and diesel. Trucks idled near the bay. Their plates did not match the schedule in her coat. She set her suitcase by a post and wrote the first number. "Ma'am?" A young deputy stood beside a cruiser, hat shining, one hand on his belt. "Good morning," Amara said. "You can't stand here. Is this county property? It's restricted. There is no sign. I'm Deputy Price. What are you doing?" "Observing a delivery site." "For a matter not assigned to your office." A forklift beeped behind the gate. Amara wrote the second plate. "Put that away," Price said. "No." His radio clicked. "Price, you got eyes on her?" "Yes, Sheriff. Westgate." Sheriff Clayton Rusk came from the office with Hank Duval, 58, thick-necked, silver stubble, leather vest over plaid, holding a paper cup. Rusk stopped at the gate. "Folks around here introduce themselves before writing down private business." "Public contracts can be observed from public ground," Amara said. Rusk smiled. "You a lawyer?" "Sometimes." Hank laughed. "That's a yes dressed up." Price nodded toward her suitcase. "She says this isn't for our office." "Did she?" Rusk's eyes dropped to the muddy hem of her gray coat. Red clay clung there. "Long walk for paperwork." Amara unbuttoned her coat. The wool smelled of rainwater and iron. "I have identification in a sealed envelope. If you want to verify my right, I will show it." Rusk held out his hand. "I will open it in view of a supervisor and request receipt." "I'm the supervisor." "Then state your name and badge number first." Price blinked. Hank's cup crumpled softly. Rusk lowered his hand. "Clayton Rusk. Sheriff. Enough ceremony?" Amara removed the gray envelope. Its seal stayed dry beneath a plastic sleeve. Rusk read the address block before she could angle it down. Only his eyes changed. "Amara Bennett," he said. "That is my name." Hank looked between them. "Problem?" "No problem." Rusk's thumb covered the lower line. "Somebody sent a woman out here with the wrong idea. I was sent with questions. And I'm answering. This is a lawful facility. You're interfering. I am outside the fence. You're creating concern." A truck engine revved. Amara looked at its plate, then at Hank. "That vehicle is scheduled for Thursday, not today." Hank's jaw worked. "You don't know what you're looking at." "Then the document will correct me." Rusk stepped close enough for rain to drip from his hat. "You're leaving. If you come back, Price will treat it as trespass." Amara folded her notebook. "Write that instruction down." The forklift stopped beeping. For a moment, there was only rain on tin. Price said, "Sheriff, she's not inside the fence." Rusk did not turn. "Deputy, ask Ms. Bennett for identification." "I offered it." "No," Rusk said, taking the envelope before her fingers closed. "Now you're going to offer it properly." The wet mud on the hem of Amara's gray coat brushed the gate as she stepped after him, leaving a dark red mark on the silver chain link. Price opened the cruiser's rear door while the red mark from Amara's coat still clung to the chain link. "Am I under arrest?" she asked. Rusk held the gray envelope under his arm. "You're coming to the station to clear up your attitude." "That is not a charge." "It can become one." Rain blew across the lot. Hank Duval watched from the awning, cup crushed flat. Amara placed her suitcase in the back and sat on the cold plastic bench. At the station, wet air followed them inside. The room smelled of cleaner, burnt coffee and damp coats. Ruth Bell sat near the forms, her purse tight in her lap. A young man with a crooked press badge lifted his head from a notebook. Rusk set the envelope on the counter and kept his palm over the seal. Amara stepped forward. Her wet sleeve touched the metal edge. When she lifted her arm, a dark print remained, like a small map. "I would like my identification reviewed in view of Deputy Price and the dispatcher," she said. Rusk turned toward the room. "Hear that? She would like." No one laughed. The young man cleared his throat. "Sheriff, is there an incident number?" Rusk stared. "Name?" "Caleb Morris, Briar Glen Ledger." "This isn't a story, son." "Then it should be easy to write down." The old camera gave a small tick. Lila Mercer watched the envelope through narrow glasses. Amara kept her hands visible. "You took a sealed document from me. I am asking that you record its condition." "You're asking a lot." "I am asking for procedure." "No." Rusk tapped the envelope. "You're asking for special treatment because you don't like being told no." Ruth's thumb slipped inside her purse. A phone screen glowed low. Rusk lifted the envelope. People bring paper, fancy words, and expect a badge to step aside. Amara's voice stayed even. "Please don't damage the seal." "Please don't test my patience." Lila whispered. "Sheriff, do you want me to enter her name?" "Enter disorderly conduct pending." Price stopped typing. "On what basis?" Rusk's palm hit the counter. Coffee mugs rattled. A toddler woke and whimpered. "There it is," Rusk said. "That attitude." The word hung under the lights. Ruth's mouth tightened. Caleb's pencil froze. Price looked at the sleeve print as if it had become evidence. Amara did not wipe it away. "I have not raised my voice," she said. "You don't have to. Some people can disrespect a room standing still." "Sheriff," Price said, "maybe we should verify." "Cuff her." Amara looked at Price, not Rusk. "On what charge?" "Failure to comply." "I complied with every instruction I understood." "Then understand this one." Price took the cuffs from his belt. His fingers fumbled once. Ruth's phone lens rose above her purse flap. "Deputy Price," Amara said, "please record that I requested review of identification before restraint." Price's throat moved. "Turn around, ma'am." She turned. Rain tapped windows. Price closed one cuff, then the other. The chill bit through her skin. Rusk handed the envelope to Lila. "Put this in my office." Amara glanced at the dark print her sleeve had left on the counter. Ruth's hidden phone caught it all. The envelope leaving the desk, the sheriff's smile, and the moment every witness chose whether to look away. The holding cell smelled of bleach that had not beaten the damp concrete. Price removed the cuffs through the slot, and Amara flexed her fingers before folding them in front of her. A pale mark circled each wrist. She did not rub it. "Time of placement?" she asked. Price looked toward the hall. "Ma'am, please." "Time of placement." The wall clock above booking clicked to 4:11 p.m. Rain ran down the frosted window. 4:11, he said. "Thank you." Rusk stood by the counter, water dripping from his hat. "Don't thank him. He didn't do you a favor." Amara sat on the metal bench. Cold passed through her coat. "My phone, suitcase, notebook, and envelope need listing as property." "They'll be listed." "By whom?" "By whoever I tell." "That is not a record." Price's pen hovered over the intake sheet. "Property log has a line for condition. Write standard property. The envelope was sealed when I surrendered it." Rusk moved closer to the bars. "She thinks this is a seminar." Her phone lay, face down, beside the keys. The gray envelope was gone. "Where is the envelope now?" "In my office." "Then its movement should be recorded." "You should worry about your movement." The outer door buzzed. Lila entered with a clipboard. Do you want the detention reason as failure to comply? That and obstruction. Obstruction of what? Of a lawful instruction. Amara spoke first. I was told to leave public ground after asking for identification review. Rusk touched the bars with 2 fingers, making the metal answer. You don't narrate this station. Price's pen scratched, then stopped. What are you waiting on? Rusk asked. Specific conduct. You have it. I need more than a phrase if this goes upstairs. Rusk stepped close. Nothing goes upstairs unless I send it. The fluorescent light hummed. Behind the wall, pipes knocked twice. Amara lowered her voice. Deputy Price, if you are uncertain, write what you observed. His face tightened. I observed you refusing to leave. After I asked whether I was legally required to leave. Rusk pointed at the page. Right. Subject became argumentative, refused repeated commands, caused disturbance in lobby. Price wrote 3 words, then stopped. She didn't cause the toddler to cry. No one said toddler. You said disturbance. Are you her attorney now? Price looked at the report. No, sir. Lila shifted the clipboard. Property log? Rusk snatched it. Phone, notebook, suitcase. Done. The envelope? She asked. It was in her possession. It's evidence. Evidence of what? Rusk stared until the room shrank. Of why you answer phones and I answer questions. Amara stood. The bench had left a red line across her palm. She pressed that palm against the cool bar, waiting. Sheriff Rusk, I request that my detention, property removal, and denied phone access be preserved on camera. He laughed once. Request denied. The camera is already preserving it. Price looked up. Lila did too. Above booking, the black dome made its tiny mechanical tick. Rusk followed their eyes and said nothing. Then Amara's phone began vibrating again on the front desk, face down beside the keys, making them tremble like they were trying to warn someone. The keys kept trembling after the phone went dark. Rusk turned Amara's device over as if it had insulted him. No name showed, only the Washington number and a missed call icon. He pushed it toward Lila. Log it as personal property. It rang twice after intake, Lila said. Then log that the owner was unavailable. From the cell, Amara said, I was available. Rusk did not turn. You were detained. That is why the call matters. Price's pen tapped against the half-written report. In the narrow booking room, it carried like a second clock. Rain pressed on the windows. Dust warmed in the vent and gave off a dry smell. Lila lifted the gray property tray. Sheriff, the envelope should go here. It stays in my office. It has a seal. It has paper. Through the glass wall, the gray envelope lay on his desk, partly under county forms. Its corner stuck out from a drawer he had not closed. Amara saw it. Please note that the sealed envelope is no longer with my logged items. Rusk's chair scraped. Deputy Price, are you letting her run the room? Price swallowed. No, sir. Then write? He bent over the report. The first line read, Subject became argumentative. He stared until the letters blurred. Lila lowered her voice. Clay, if that number is what I think it is. You don't think on my time. Her face went still. On the lobby bench, Ruth Bell stood with her purse hooked over both wrists. I just need my report stamped. Rusk turned. You can wait. I've waited 40 minutes. Then one more won't ruin you. Ruth's eyes flicked to the cell. Her phone was hidden again, thumb sliding along the purse clasp. Caleb Morris rose from the far bench. Sheriff, is the camera recording? Rusk smiled without warmth. You writing a technology column? I'm asking because you mentioned a disturbance. Sit down. Caleb sat, notebook open. Amara spoke through the bars. Mrs. Bell, if you file a report, ask for a receipt. Ruth blinked. A receipt? For proof you came. Rusk's boot struck the floor. Enough. The room stopped moving. Price looked at the office drawer. The envelope's corner showed a pale line in the gap. A small federal mark was visible, not enough for a name, enough for a warning. Sheriff, Price said, what if we check it? Rusk walked back slowly. Check what? The envelope. She already gave a name. A name isn't verification. Rusk leaned over him. Coffee and mint gum sharpened the air. Verify that I told you what to write. Price wrote another line, too hard. The pen tore the paper near the date. Lila flinched. Amara rested her palm on the bar. Deputy, a torn page should not disappear. Price froze. Rusk whispered, Do not answer her. Outside, a truck hissed through water. Marcus Hale watched from the diner awning. When Hank Duval's pickup turned toward the courthouse, Marcus took out his phone. Ruth stepped to the counter. I'd like a receipt, she said. Rusk stared as if she had moved a wall. Lila took the form before he could stop her. I can stamp that. The stamp came down loud. Caleb wrote the time beside it. Price glanced at the torn report, then at the gray corner trapped in Rusk's desk drawer, and for the first time he did not keep writing. Price did not write again until Rusk shut the office door. The glass blurred their shapes, but the vent above Amara's cell carried Rusk's voice. New page. Price answered lower. The first one is usable. It's torn. Only at the date. Then it's unusable. Paper slid across the desk. A drawer clicked. Amara kept one hand on the bar, letting metal cool the line across her palm. Ruth had her receipt. Caleb had the time. Rusk said, Start with initial contact. At the warehouse? At the station. But the contact started at the west gate. The report starts where I say it starts. The vent smelled of dust. Amara could hear Price breathing. Right. Subject was brought in after concern at a restricted facility. It wasn't marked restricted. Deputy? A pen touched paper. Amara stepped closer. Deputy Price, first contact was 7:32 a.m. The office went still. Rusk opened the door. You don't speak through walls. Then close the vent. Price looked at her, caught, then looked down. Rusk shut the door harder. Right that she attempted to interfere with reporting. She gave a time. She gave an order. No, sir. The cell seemed to shift around the two words. Rusk's voice dropped. You want to repeat that? Price said nothing. Amara sat on the bench. Cold pressed through her coat. For 1 second she saw the inspection file waiting in Atlanta, the scheduled call missed, the questions about missing pallets turning into a blank space with her name beside it. Her fingers went to the pocket. The photograph came out with a scrape. Daniel smiled from a faded afternoon, his dress uniform too bright for the old paper. Beside him, Maya was 7, holding a paper flag and showing 2 missing teeth. A white crease cut across Daniel's sleeve. She ran her thumb over it. Not today. Lila's shoes stopped outside the cell. Ms. Bennett? Medication? No. Emergency contact? My niece, Maya Bennett. 19. Her number is in my phone under M. I can't access it without permission. You have permission to retrieve that number and log the action. Lila glanced toward Rusk's office. He won't like that. Then write that he refused. The office door opened. Rusk came out with a fresh report. Lila, back to dispatch. She was answering intake. She can answer later. Price followed, pale. The first line was visible upside down. Subject was transported after repeated refusal. Amara read it. Price saw that she had. "You removed the warehouse," she said. "I removed confusion," Rusk said. "You removed the beginning." Rusk held the paper toward Price. "Sign." Price stared at the line. "Sign it." The lobby had gone quiet enough for the camera to tick. Ruth stood near the door. Caleb's pencil hovered. Price pressed the pen down. His fingers slipped once. Amara stood. The photograph bent under her thumb, and the crease across Daniel's sleeve whitened. "My brother used to say," she said, voice thinner than before, "a missing minute can bury a person." Price looked up. Rusk's face hardened. "Sign." Price signed. The pen mark dragged across the page like a door closing. Amara turned the photograph over, away from the room, and held it against her coat until the paper stopped shaking. The signature was still wet when Amara's phone lit again. The vibration came in hard pulses, as if the metal desk had a heartbeat. The keys beside it shivered. Lila turned from dispatch. Price held the pen used to sign the report. Rusk looked at the screen. "Do not touch it." Lila's hand had already lifted. "Sheriff, that is the same number." "It can call again." From the cell, Amara kept Daniel's photograph against her coat. "Answer and log the call." Rusk picked up the phone by its edges. "You don't decide what gets answered. If the call concerns my detention, denying it becomes part of the record." He turned the dark screen toward her. "Always a record. Always a rule. A rule is why a room like this does not become whatever one person wants." The phone rang until it stopped. A faint tone marked a new voicemail. Lila swallowed. "There's a message." Rusk pressed the side button. "There is nothing." Then the desk phone rang. Not Amara's cell. The county line. Everyone heard the difference. Its bell was older, sharper, wired into the walls. Ruth stopped near the front door with her receipt. Caleb's pencil pressed a black dot into his page. Lila reached for it. Rusk put his palm over the cradle. "No? That's the front line. We can ignore it. Not forever. We can when I am standing here." The bell rang again. Amara closed her eyes for one breath. Behind them, she saw an empty chair in Atlanta, a folder unopened, Maya waiting for a call that said the promise had reached paper. Price said, "Sheriff, answer it." Rusk moved toward him. "What did you say?" "It should be answered." "You signed the report, Deputy. Don't pretend your spine arrived after the ink dried." Price's fingers tightened on the pen until the plastic creaked. Lila lifted the receiver halfway. Rusk snapped, "Hang it up." A woman's voice came through before Lila could cover it. "This is Colonel Rebecca Sloan calling from—" Rusk struck the cradle. The line died. The sound afterward was worse than the ring. Amara's hand dropped from the bars. The photograph bent in her palm. Her thumb landed across Daniel's face, then moved quickly, as if she had touched something breakable. Price saw it. Rusk pointed toward his office. "Lila, back to dispatch. Price, file that report." "Sheriff," Price said, "that was a colonel. You heard half a sentence." "I heard enough. You heard a woman on a phone." Amara lifted her head. Her voice stayed level, but there was less air in it. "The people waiting for that call do not know where I am." Rusk laughed. "Then they'll learn patience." "No," she said. "They will learn your name." Ruth's receipt slipped. Caleb wrote the sentence and stopped, leaving space beneath it. Price looked at the dead desk phone. He had seen people make themselves smaller in rooms like this. What he saw now was a woman holding a creased photograph with both hands so it would not fold again. "Deputy," Amara said, "please note that an official caller was disconnected at approximately 4:23 p.m. Rusk stepped close to the bars. No one is noting anything. The front line rang again. Lila stood frozen between the console and the desk. Rusk did not turn fast enough to see her hand move toward the receiver. Lila's fingers closed around the receiver before Rusk could cross the room. "Briar Glen Sheriff's Office," she said. "Dispatcher Mercer speaking." Rain ticked against the windows. The black cord brushed the desk as her hand shook. A woman's voice came through clear and clipped. "This is Colonel Rebecca Sloan with the Office of Defense Contract Oversight. I need confirmation of Amara Bennett's location." Lila's eyes lifted to the cell. "One moment, ma'am." "No," Rusk said. "She's asking for Ms. Bennett." "Put the phone down." Price stood beside the signed report. "Sheriff, we can't hang up on that call twice. We don't know who that is." Amara stepped to the bars. "Ask for a callback number and office code." Lila repeated it, listened, then wrote on a yellow pad. The pen shook through the first digit, leaving a dark tail. Caleb Morris rose halfway. "Defense Contract Oversight?" Rusk turned. "Sit down." Caleb sat. Ruth Bell stayed near the door, receipt folded once. Lila swallowed. "Colonel Sloan, I'm placing you on speaker." Rusk reached for the phone. Price stepped between him and the desk. "Move," Rusk said. "Let her verify." "You choosing her over this office?" "I'm choosing the log." The receiver clicked into speaker. A faint hiss filled the room. "State your name and rank," Lila said. "Colonel Rebecca Sloan, Federal Liaison, Office of Defense Contract Oversight. I am calling about Senior Inspector Amara Bennett, scheduled for a secure reporting call at 4:15 p.m. Eastern. Her line disconnected, and 2 follow-up attempts were declined." The word senior crossed the lobby like cold air under a door. Price looked at Amara. She did not look back. Rusk cleared his throat. "Colonel, this is Sheriff Clayton Rusk. Ms. Bennett is temporarily detained following an incident at a restricted facility." "Detained under what charge?" "Failure to comply." "Charge code." Rusk glanced at Price. Price looked at the report. "Is Inspector Bennett unable to speak?" Sloan asked. "No?" "Then I need to hear her voice." "This is a local matter." "No, Sheriff. It became a federal matter when your office interfered with an inspector assigned to an active contract review." Caleb wrote without looking down. Amara spoke from the cell. "Colonel Sloan, this is Bennett. I am conscious. My phone, notebook, suitcase, and sealed envelope were taken. The envelope is not in the property tray." A pause crossed the line. "Repeat the last sentence." "The sealed envelope is not in the property tray." Rusk snapped, "That is not accurate." Price looked toward the office drawer. Lila saw him look. Sloan's voice cooled. "Dispatcher Mercer, record this call. Deputy on scene, state your name." Price's mouth opened once. "Deputy Evan Price." "Deputy Price, preserve all booking video, lobby video, call logs, and property records related to Ms. Bennett from first contact onward." Rusk gave a short laugh. "You don't give orders to my deputy." "No," Sloan said. "I give notice." The rain slowed outside. The old camera overbooking made its tiny tick. Lila wrote the time beside Colonel Sloan's name. Price set the pen down, away from the false report. On the speaker, Sloan said, "Sheriff Rusk, keep this line open." "Keep this line open," Colonel Sloan said again, and the station held still around the speaker's hiss. Lila's pen rested beside the pad. Price stood between Rusk and the desk phone. Rusk said, "Colonel, your inspector created a disturbance. Put the responsible officer on the line. You're speaking to him. Then answer like one. Is Senior Inspector Bennett secured for safety, or held on a filed charge. Rusk's eyes cut to Price. Bring up the entry. Price sat at the booking computer. His fingers hit the keys, stopped, then typed Amara's name. The screen changed. He went quiet. What? Rusk said. Price read from the blue glow. Amara Denise Bennett, Senior Inspector, Office of Defense Contract Oversight, Assigned Review Authority for Supply Irregularities in Southeastern Vendors. Rusk leaned over him. That could mean anything. It means she is exactly who her documents say she is, Sloane said. Behind the bars, Amara held Daniel's photograph folded in her palm. Lila looked toward the office. Sheriff, the envelope. Not now. Now, Sloane said. Rusk gave a short laugh. She refused to identify herself at a controlled facility. Amara spoke quietly. I offered identification in a sealed envelope and requested a receipt. That is correct, Price said. Rusk turned. Deputy. Price kept his eyes on the monitor. She offered it, at the gate. Did your office open the envelope? Sloane asked. It was secured. That was not my question. Lila said, It is in the sheriff's drawer. Rusk stared at her. Retrieve it without breaking the seal, Sloane said. Place it on camera. State the time. Price stood. I didn't tell you to move, Rusk said. No, sir, she did. He crossed into the office. The drawer opened with a scrape. When he returned, the gray envelope lay flat in both hands. Its seal was intact, but one corner had been bent under the drawer edge. Amara's eyes went to that crease. Price placed it beneath the black dome camera. Envelope retrieved at 4:31 p.m. Rusk said, You're all enjoying theater. No, Amara said. Theater needs an audience. This needed witnesses. Sloane said, Explain why Inspector Bennett's call access was denied. She was disruptive. Dispatcher Mercer, how many calls from this office or from her device were declined? Lila checked the pad. 3 from the mobile. 1 county line call disconnected. This one answered. Who ordered the disconnections? Rusk's jaw shifted. We had an active local situation. Who ordered them? Price looked at the false report on the counter. The torn first page lay beneath it. Date ripped. Ink split across the fibers. Rusk said, I made the call. Sloane waited 1 beat. That is the first clear sentence you have given me. Amara set Daniel's photograph inside her coat and closed the button over it. Price saw the small movement and looked away. Release Inspector Bennett, Sloane said. Preserve every record from the west gate forward. Do not alter the report, the envelope, the camera feed, or the call logs. Rusk reached for the keys, then stopped as if they had turned hot. Price picked them up instead. The brass edges clicked in his shaking hand while the cursor blinked beside Amara's full name. Price unlocked the cell at 4:34 p.m. The door did not swing open. He pulled it with both hands, and the hinges gave a tired squeal. Amara stepped out, gray coat brushing the frame. Inspector Bennett, Price said, you are released from the holding cell. Not released from the record, she answered. Rusk stood by the counter. Collect your things and leave. My property will be collected on camera. The envelope will be opened in view of witnesses. That envelope is federal property. It was federal property when you put it in your drawer. The speakerphone hissed. Colonel Sloane said, Proceed. Lila placed the tray on the counter. Phone, notebook, suitcase tag, coins, and a cracked pen. Price set the gray envelope beside them. Its bent corner showed a pale crease where the drawer had caught it. Ruth Bell stood near the door. Caleb Morris stopped pretending to study his notebook. Ms. Mercer, state the time, Amara said. 4:36 p.m. Deputy Price, confirm the seal. Seal intact, Price said. Corner damaged. That damage is part of the record, too. He wrote it down. Amara lifted the envelope. Rain slipped from the gutter. The camera ticked over the desk. Her thumb found the paper edge and tore it cleanly across the top. The sound was soft, almost harmless. Lila still flinched. Inside were 3 sheets and a blue-backed credential card. Amara laid them flat. Authorization. Vendor irregularities. Prior complaint extract. Rusk stepped forward. I want my attorney present before— No one is questioning you yet, Sloane said. Caleb whispered, yet, then covered it by turning a page. Amara slid the first sheet toward Price. Read the header. His voice came rough. Federal Inspection Authority. Briar Glen Supply Center. Effective October 17th. The second. Shipment anomalies. Inventory mismatch. Duplicate logs. Hank Duvall's name appeared halfway down. Rusk saw it and went still. Those are allegations, he said. They are questions, Amara replied. You turned questions into detention. Lila touched the last page. There's more. It listed complaints against the sheriff's office, denied calls, missing time entries, reports altered after intake. Dates went back 18 months. Ruth took one step forward. That happened to Thomas Reed. He couldn't reach his daughter for 6 hours. Caleb's pencil began moving. Amara turned to Ruth. Did you record today? Ruth pulled out her phone. I didn't know if it would matter. It matters. Ruth handed it to Lila. I got the counter, cuffs, and the envelope leaving. Lila accepted the phone. I'll log it. Rusk gave a dry laugh. You're all making yourselves experts. No, Price said. He picked up the torn first report. We're making ourselves witnesses. The room held that sentence. Rusk stared at the paper as if it had turned against him. Amara placed Daniel's photograph beside the envelope for one breath. Then she put it away. Colonel Sloane, she said, the documents are open, the envelope is logged, and the first recording has been surrendered. Then we begin preservation, Sloane said. Above them, the old camera ticked while Price turned the false report face up and wrote the correct time beside it. By 5:12 p.m., the sheriff's conference room smelled of copier heat and wet wool. Dana Whitcomb, 45, from the county commission, arrived with copper hair pinned tight and a green folder against her chest. Miles Grant, 50, the reviewer, followed in rimless glasses, lining his pens parallel. Nothing leaves this room, Grant said. Rusk leaned against the wall. This is still my building. Grant looked over his glasses. Then you know where the cameras are. Lila placed Ruth's phone, the call log, and 2 intake sheets on the table. Price set the torn report beside the signed one. The tear near the date curled under fluorescent light. Dana sat. Inspector Bennett, do you want counsel? I want the record preserved before memory improves, Amara said. Grant nodded. Fair. The lobby video played first. The image was grainy, the sound thin. Rusk's voice came through. That attitude. On screen, Amara stood with her hands visible. The toddler cried after the counter rattled, not before. Donna paused it. Sheriff, your report says she caused a disturbance. She did. Grant tapped the timeline. Point to the moment. Rusk did not move. Lila's chair creaked. The child woke when the mug shook, not because of her. Rusk turned. You sure you want part of this? Lila looked at her hands. Ink from the pad had smudged her thumb. I already am. Ruth's phone video came next, low and tilted from her purse. It caught the gray envelope leaving under Rusk's arm. It caught Price failing with the cuff. It caught Amara saying, Please record that I requested review of identification before restraint. Price shut his eyes. Grant wrote a note. Deputy, why is first contact absent from your final report? Price answered before Rusk could speak. Because I was told to start at the station. Told by whom? Rusk stepped forward. He's a junior deputy. He misunderstood. No, Price said. The word landed flat on the table. Price opened the torn report. I started at the West Gate. I wrote the time. I wrote that she offered identification. Sheriff Rusk told me to make a new page. Rusk laughed once. You signed the report. I did. Price's voice shook. That's mine. The order was his. Grant slid the call log forward. Dispatcher Mercer, 4 calls were declined or disconnected. Who directed that? Lila touched Ruth's phone. Sheriff Rusk told me to leave the mobile alone. He ordered me to disconnect the county line after Colonel Sloan identified herself. Rusk's face reddened. You panicked. I obeyed. Lila swallowed. Then I stopped. Outside, rainwater dripped from someone's umbrella. Plink. 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 Donna opened the green folder. Prior complaints show similar language. Denied phone access. Missing timestamps. Property not logged. Rusk pushed off the wall. You people are turning a detention into a career execution. Amara finally spoke. A routine detention should survive routine questions. Grant placed 3 printed timelines side by side. Camera time, phone log, report time. None matched. Sheriff, he said, explain the 7-minute gap. Rusk stared at the paper, then at Price, then at Lila. No one filled the silence. The clock clicked to 5:29 p.m. as Grant circled the gap in red ink. The public hearing began at 6:18 p.m. after the rain stopped and left courthouse steps shining like black glass. People filled the commission room in wet jackets and work boots. The heater blew dust from the vents. Folding chairs scraped whenever someone shifted. At the front, a thin microphone waited on a wooden table, its red light dark. Dana Whitcomb adjusted the papers. We are taking statements related to Inspector Bennett's detention and prior complaints involving this office. Rusk sat with an attorney 2 chairs from the aisle. His hat was gone. His face looked smaller. Thomas Reed rose first. 71. Narrow shoulders. Veteran's cap pinched in both hands. State your name, Miles Grant said. Thomas Reed. Last spring I asked why my grandson's truck got impounded. They put me in a back room. Said I was interfering. My daughter called and called. Nobody answered. Did you file a complaint? Thomas held up a folded copy. 3 times. Never got a receipt. Elena Ward, 36, the school nurse, stood next. She had dark curls tied with a pencil. I treated a boy who walked home after his mother was held 4 hours on a warrant mistake. He kept asking if being quiet made things worse. The room lost its small noises. Rusk's attorney whispered, Objection. Donna looked at him. This is not a trial. Marcus Hale came to the microphone with greasy invoices. I fix county trucks when they bother paying. These plates were at Briar Glen Supply at dawn. Same plates show on delivery logs for Thursday. 1 set of records was written before the trucks moved. Hank Duvall's chair creaked. Grant took the folder. How do you know the date? My shop camera caught them passing at 6:02. Rain streaked the side. Caleb Morris wrote so fast his pencil snapped. He used the broken half. Ruth stood last among the first group. Her hands were red from twisting her receipt. My name is Ruth Bell. I own the diner. I heard people talk for years. I poured coffee, nodded, and told myself I had bills. The microphone hummed. When Amara stood at that counter, I knew what was happening. Not the federal part, the human part. She looked at Amara, then down. I recorded because I was afraid. I waited because I was afraid too. Amara sat near the front, gray coat folded over her lap. Daniel's photograph stayed hidden inside the pocket. Rusk leaned toward his attorney. She's performing. Ruth did not turn. Sheriff, I performed each morning. I smiled at men who made customers whisper. No one clapped. That made it heavier. Grant placed the statements beside the timelines. Inspector Bennett, do you wish to add anything? Amara rose. Her chair did not scrape. She walked to the microphone and waited until the red light came on. Procedure exists, she said, for people who do not have a colonel calling, a reporter present, or a diner owner brave enough to press record. She stepped back. Thomas Reed took off his cap. Elena wiped her sleeve, though the rain spot had dried. Marcus closed his folder. Dana looked over the room. The commission will vote tonight on emergency oversight measures. At the rear, Hank Duval tried to slip into the hallway, but Caleb's broken pencil was already moving across a fresh page. Dana Whitcomb called the emergency vote at 7:04 p.m. The commission room had thinned, but no one left completely. People stood in the hallway, coats dripping onto the tile. The air smelled of wet paper and bitter coffee. Motion 1, Dana said. Administrative suspension of Sheriff Clayton Rusk pending outside review. All in favor? 4 hands lifted. One commissioner hesitated, eyes on Rusk, then raised his hand too. Rusk shoved back his chair. You think this will hold? Miles Grant closed his folder. Long enough to preserve records. Deputy Price sat in the second row, collar crooked, face gray. Dana read the next motion. Deputy Evan Price is placed on restricted duty and ordered to provide sworn testimony regarding report alteration, property handling, and call denial. Price's fingers worked at his cuff button. I understand. Rusk turned on him. You understand nothing. Price kept his eyes down. I understand more than I wrote. Grant slid another page forward. The Briar Glen Supply Center contract is frozen pending audit. Shipment logs are to be secured tonight. Hank Duval snapped, You can't shut down my yard over a woman with a folder. Amara stood. Her gray coat was over her arm, the sleeve still marked with red clay. No one shut it down over me, she said. The logs did. Hank's mouth opened, then closed. Dana cleared her throat. Final motion. Emergency detention procedure changes, effective at midnight. Lila Mercer straightened beside the door. Dana read each line. Time of first contact entered before booking. Property photographed and logged before removal. One phone call offered within 30 minutes unless a written safety exception is approved. Call denials documented. Booking and lobby video stored for 90 days. Monthly public review of complaint receipts. The room did not cheer. Interim Sheriff Joanne Bell stepped in from the side aisle. 48, black, broad-shouldered, close-cropped hair, navy jacket. Dana turned to her. Captain Bell, will you accept temporary command? Joanne looked at Rusk first. Yes. Rusk laughed under his breath. Good luck cleaning up their feelings. Joanne walked to the front. I'm not here for feelings. I'm here for records. At 8:11 p.m., they returned to the sheriff's station. The flag outside hung heavy and dark. Joanne unlocked the lobby with Rusk's old keys. Price followed with blank forms. Lila carried a new sign printed on county letterhead. Amara stood near the counter where her sleeve had left its mark hours earlier. Someone had wiped the metal clean, but she knew where it had been. Joanne held the sign against the wall. There! Lila taped the corners. The paper listed rights in plain sentences. Time recorded. Property logged. Phone access. Receipt available. No fine print. Price set his forms down. Inspector Bennett. Amara turned. I'm sorry I signed it. She buttoned her gray coat. Make the next signature true. His jaw tightened once. Yes, ma'am. Joanne stepped back from the wall. The notice hung slightly crooked. Lila reached to fix it, but Amara lifted a hand. Leave it, she said. Let people see it was put up tonight. Under the old camera, the crooked sign trembled each time the heater came on. 3 months later, the bell above Ruth Bell's diner door stuck twice before it rang. Amara Bennett stepped in from the cold with her gray coat buttoned to the throat. The room smelled of coffee, cinnamon, and rain drying on wool. Near the window, the same booth waited, but the town outside looked less afraid of its reflection. Ruth came from behind the counter with 2 mugs. You still take it black? Yes. I kept wanting to add sugar. Felt like the least I could do. Amara sat. Coffee is enough. Ruth set the cup down carefully, handle turned toward Amara. On the wall by the register, Caleb Morris's article hung in a cheap black frame. He had written the first story in the Briar Glen Ledger, then 5 more. Each named procedures, dates, and missing receipts. At 10 o'clock, the County Commission opened its first public oversight report in the school auditorium. Interim Sheriff Joanne Beale stood beside the intake chart and read numbers aloud. Calls offered, property logs completed, complaint receipts issued. Lila Mercer, now training new dispatchers, pointed to the line that said no caller could be disconnected without a written entry. Say it even when your voice shakes, Lila told a trainee. Across the aisle, Evan Price sat in plain clothes. Restricted duty had become a demotion, then a transfer to records after his testimony. When he saw Amara, he stood. I tell recruits about the report, he said. Which one? The true one. She nodded once. Keep telling it. Clayton Rusk was gone from Briar Glen. The outside review found altered documentation, improper detention practices, and interference with a federal inspection. He resigned before termination and lost his command certification pending a state ethics ruling. Hank Duvall's warehouse contract stayed frozen, then moved to a monitored vendor after auditors found duplicate shipment logs. No one cheered when Dana read those facts. People wrote them down. After the meeting, Maya Bennett waited outside the diner. 19, taller than the photograph suggested, she wore Daniel's old watch loose on her wrist. Aunt Amara? Amara stopped. For a second, the years folded. The paper flag, the missing teeth, Daniel's arm around a little girl. Then Maya was grown and blinking against the wind. I'm glad you came, Amara said. Maya handed her an envelope. I read what you sent. Mom said he would have liked that you didn't make it about revenge. I almost did in my head. But you didn't. No. Amara looked through the diner window at the crooked rights notice Ruth had taped near the register. I made it harder for someone else to disappear in paperwork. Maya's fingers touched the old photograph inside the envelope. He kept the same picture? I did. The crease across Daniel's sleeve was still there, but it no longer looked like damage. It looked like proof that something had been carried long enough to matter. Inside the diner, Ruth poured coffee for Thomas Reed. Marcus argued softly with Caleb about headline verbs. Lila laughed at something Joanne said by the counter, then covered her mouth as if learning she was allowed. Amara hung her gray coat on the hook beside the window. Rain tapped lightly against the glass. Maya sat across from her, the envelope between them, and Amara let her hands rest empty on the table. Outside, the morning settled silver and quiet. If this story reminded you of a time when someone was judged before they were heard, share that experience in the comments. Sometimes the smallest detail, a receipt, a recording, a written time, can protect a person when power tries to make them invisible. Share this story with someone who believes dignity and justice should not depend on status, connections, or who is watching. And subscribe for more stories about quiet strength, hard-earned truth, and the kind of system changes that begin when one person refuses to let the record be rewritten. Your voice may help someone else recognize the moment when silence is no longer safe.